Hey everyone, are you ready to learn? Today, we will be talking about Acuñas philosophical analysis and how does it help us in our journey in discovering the path of knowledge.
We will start off with Module 1, Words and Concepts. Objectives. Distinguish word and concept. Explain how concepts are made. Lastly, distinguish simple and complex terms. Words are the simplest form of communication, and without concept knowledge as we know it, will not develop and we will not be able to understand and expound our knowledge and intelligence as a species. Concept, on the other hand, is not the same as words, but words can be a sign of concept. In layman's terms, words are made from letters and concepts are made from ideas.
The formation of a concept, according to John Locke, is that everything in the world is particular. A great example of this would be scooping a handful of sand. You will see each bit and granule of it being particular. Now, if you even try to name each of those particles, it will take you eternity to do it. In other words, it's not really practical. And John Locke expounded that this process of naming every particle which is impractical is called abstraction. Now, that is the reason why general terms were invented because of this impractical action.
Now, general idea is a characteristic common to a group of particulars. An example of this would be a handful of sand. What is common in the handful of sand? It can be its color or its size. If we find this common characteristic, we can use it as its general term. This group of sand can now be identified as white sand because all the particulars are observed to be white.
Moving on to simple and complex terms. Simple terms are one-word terms that represent an idea or a certain concept. For example, the word cat. The word cat represents all the feline pets that we humans call as cat. Or the word chair. It denotes all the objects that we associate with the word chair. Those are simple terms with one words only. Then if we're talking about complex terms, these are just a group of words that represent a concept or idea. The key word here is group. So an example of this would be the King of England. The King of England or that group of words represent the idea or concept of the monarch ruler of England and nothing else. The group of word Black Plague represents the disease that happened in England years ago. Those are complex terms.
That was very fun and easy to learn, isn't it? Now let's move to the next level, which would be Module 2, Extension and Intentions of Concepts. Objectives. Analyze concepts in terms of its extension and intention. Distinguish intention in terms of either essential property or family resemblance. Discuss significance of Wittgenstein's example of concept games. Extension basically is the member of a domain or coverage of a concept. It means that when a concept is uttered, all the entities or object that it denotes is its extension. Like the term kangaroo, it denotes all the mammal species that can identify as a kangaroo, regardless of its shape, size, or sex.
Intention, on the other hand, is the characteristics that all the members of the extension of a concept share specifically. Like the example earlier, the intention of the concept kangaroo is that it is the only mammal to have a pouch.
So, learning about extensions and intentions of a concept are easy, right? Next topic would be essential property. This basically says that if the intentions of a concept become very precise to the point that it is a necessity in checking the members of the extension of the concept, then that characteristic becomes essential property. An example would be that an animal needs to have a mammary gland to be considered as a mammal. Essentialism, on the other hand, states that the essential properties are important to give meaning to a concept.
Essentialism is a great philosophy, but Wittgenstein begs to disagree. In his book Philosophical Investigation, he challenged the essentialist view. He enjoins together the concept of games, ball games, board games, and card games. He asks, what single trait that these games have in common? Is it enjoyment, winning or losing, or something else? Wittgenstein could not see an essential property. He then states that do not say that there must be something in common in the concept of games. He states that for you to understand the concept and the relationship, connections, and similarities, one must not think but look. By these words or by this way of thinking, by using this way of thinking, you observe that there is no essential property that connects all games, but a series of interconnecting similarities and relationships that builds together this concept of game that we have. And then proposes to call this interconnecting similarities as family resemblance. That is how family resemblance was invented.
Wittgenstein reiterates that it is far more significant to just look and observe that chess question. That was fast! We are now halfway in our learning adventure. The next module will be about the same language. Objectives are to describe how a word requires a meaning, distinguish ambiguous and vague concepts, avoid useless verbal controversies. Lastly, apply a cardinal rule in critical thinking. First topic will be about the meaning of words. Many philosophers believe that a word takes meaning through how people of verbal community use it orally or written. Wittgenstein reiterates the meaning of a word is its usage in the language. Words are used to represent names, places, things, and etc. A group of words can make a command, a wish, or an intention. This is what makes word meaningful.
Now, we need to learn how to determine the meaning of a word. For us to understand the meaning of a word, we need to understand its language game. A language game is the use or actions associated with the word according to Wittgenstein. After learning what a language game is, we must learn what is ambiguous words and vague words. Ambiguous words are words that acquire many different meanings in different language games. So an example of this would be the word duck. The word duck can mean an animal or the action word ducking. Now, moving on to vague words. Vague words, on the other hand, are terms that are used loosely in many different language games. An example of this would be the term some or the term many, because they loosely represent something or a concept. They loosely represent a concept. That is why they are called vague words.
Moving on. Useless controversies are basically misunderstanding through using the same word with different language games. It is when people in a discussion or argument does not use the same language game in the word that they use. This can result to pointless argument or verbal agreement that is incorrect because of the different use of the word that they utter. Please note that it is important to inform each other regarding your use of words to lessen useless controversies.
Next would be the cardinal rule. The cardinal rule is basically do not join a discussion or argument without identifying and confirming the other participant that you are on the same page or you are using the same language game. In other words, that you use. In the cardinal rule, we must ask these two questions. What do you mean by that? In what sense are you using the word? This is for us to look for the extension and the intentions of the word, for us to fully understand its meaning, for us to avoid useless controversies.
Wow, one more to go. We are on the last module of our discussion, which will be all about classification of concepts. Objectives are to distinguish the 7 main categories of concept, apply the techniques for classifying concepts, and lastly is to apply intra and intersubjectivity tests. There are 7 classification of concepts, but it can change in the future as knowledge always evolves. First is empirical concepts. They are the concepts that you can observe by your unaided senses. These are concepts that you can say, it exists. Concepts like table, phones, chairs, animals, and many others. Second is theoretical concepts. They are concepts that you need powerful sensory extending devices like microscope to observe. There are 2 powerful sensory devices that we can learn. First is the microscope and second is the radio telescope. Both devices are used for us to observe the micro and macro universe, which are the atoms and galaxies. Third is dispositional concepts. These are the concepts that can only be observed through using specific operation, like magnetism. Can only be observed by using iron fillings and putting them in objects. If it moves, then it is magnetic. That is dispositional concept.
Fourth concept is analytical concept. These are concepts that are neither tangible nor visible. They exist by the creation of our minds to help us analyze and improve our understanding of the world. So an example of this concept would be numbers. These are concepts that help us understand the world. They are neither tangible nor visible. The fifth concept is evaluative concept. This concept is about our judgment of the worth or value of a person, act, behavior, event, place, or etc. An example of this concept would be, is an action moral or immoral? Is a thing beautiful or ugly? Is a person guilty or not guilty? Did you do bad or good? Those are examples of evaluative concepts. Six is the fictitious concepts. So basically, these are concepts that are purely imaginary. Examples of this would be unicorns, spaceships, laser beams, tikbalang, aswang. So those are fictitious concepts.
Last would be metaphysical concept. It is the center stage of many philosophical systems. These concepts are the concepts that are hard to understand and decipher. It is immaterial, has no weight, no mass, and consequently cannot be in space. Yet, it is believed to exist in time. It is also indivisible and eternal. Another concept example of metaphysics is absolute. Its intentions are that it is the universal mind, the composition of every mind to ever exist, whether from past or the future.
Now moving on to intra and intersubjectivity tests. These tests help us classify the different concepts that we have. So intrasubjectivity test is when a concept passes this test if you can observe it whenever you want. If you feel or hear or see this concept whenever you want. The keyword here is you. If you can see or observe the concept, then it passes the intrasubjectivity test. So the next test is intersubjectivity test. So a concept passes this test if others can observe, feel, or see the concept. So the keyword here is others, if others observe the concept. So we can use this test in identifying the different concepts or classifying the different concepts. So an example of using these tests are, for example, for a concept to be empirical, it must pass both the intra and intersubjectivity test. And for a concept to be fictitious, It must fail both intra and intersubjectivity tests. For a concept to be trans-empirical, it must pass the intra and fail the intersubjectivity test. So those are some ways you can use the inter and intra-subjectivity test for you to classify the different concepts. Now, this quote-unquote intra and intersubjectivity consensus is the subjectivity test, or it is the test that only a community of experts in the field can use to prove theoretical concepts. So they are mainly used for theoretical concepts because only experts can use the different powerful tools to help our senses. That is the end of our discussion. Before we end our video presentation, these are the words that you must remember and review for you to fully understand the modules 1 to 4 of Acuñas philosophical analysis. The first ones or topics is the words and concepts. You must know how to differentiate them. What is general idea? You must know that. What is simple and complex terms and how do you use them and differentiate them? What is the extension of a concept and intension of a concept, and why must we understand them? And what is essential property in concepts? And what is essentialism? And what is family resemblance and why is it relevant to our topic? How did Wittgenstein come up with family resemblance? The theory of meaning, how did that happen? What is ambiguous and vague words and why do we avoid them? What is useless controversies and why is it important to avoid them? How do we use the cardinal rule to avoid useless controversies? And classification of concept. What are the classifications of concept? And how do we use intra and intersubjectivity tests to help us understand and classify concepts? And that is all. Please use the knowledge that you have learned about the modules 1 to 4 of Acuñas philosophical analysis, not only in the subject, but also in our world too, for us to understand the world better and for us to improve our knowledge. Thank you for listening, and that is our presentation.